Welcome back to the Saw Shop, everybody. Today's video, let's do some more work on the 394. We'll chip away at it a little here, a little there, and hopefully when we're done, we have a running saw. Remember, I got this in a box blown up, and I don't know what it's going to do or whether it's going to do anything, but the only way to know is to replace what I think's wrong on it and build a saw out of it. Anyhow, today's video, I got a couple of emails last week. Those of you out there that have 394 projects, you want to know, can I use a 395 piston in a 394? 395 top ends, like this one from Meteor, are super common, super easy to find, and are easily sourceable. The 394 top end, you can't get anymore. And I wish somebody in the aftermarket would make these, but there's probably not enough of these left to build top ends for. Wink, wink, Highway and Meteor. Can you guys make one of these? I'm just saying. Or is that a silly question? I'm on the YouTubing side, friends. I'm not on the manufacturing and selling side, so that might be a horrible idea. But anyways, you can find 395 top ends and pistons. They seem to grow on trees, but 394 components are hard to find. So let's say you got a 394 with a good cylinder like this one appears to, and you need a piston. Can you use a 395 piston in a 394? Are they exactly the same or are they different? Today's video, let's have a look at that. Okay, thank you to Ryan at Wolf Creek for providing us a sample of different pistons that are available on the market, stuff that you can just, order and grab for your builds. Now, first things first, before we get into pistons, what is the difference between the 395 and 394 top end? Well, this is the intake side. The first thing you guys might notice, 394 is an intake block. 395 has an intake boot, okay? Or bellow, they call them. And an impulse line. This 394 has an intake block, okay? And an impulse hole. You can see there's a hole right here. All that hole's for is to pulse your carburetor. That's what makes your fuel pump work. When the piston goes down, it creates pressure in the case, right? It pressurizes the case, which pushes air, fuel, and oil through here into the carburetor, and that makes the carburetor go pss, 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 and that's what makes it pump fuel, okay? The 395 has a hole there, okay? And an impulse hose, okay? So this is the more modern way of doing it. This is the old school way. What are the differences? Well, mainly this intake will transmit heat, okay, to the carburetor generally. These are prone to cracking, as you guys know. These get cracked. Oh, and thank you to everybody that emailed. I answered a couple of you guys. I'll probably jump back into my emails and just send the rest of you guys a message. But a bunch of you guys were like, hey, I have parts. Can I help? Thank you to everybody that did that. I totally wasn't fishing for parts. But as I've found out, you can't get an intake block aftermarket for these anymore. And they seem to be hard to find, but I was going to go to my local Husqvarna dealer and see if they still sell them. I don't know if they do. But so that's the main problem with these. If you need parts, you might not be able to get them anymore. Nice thing is the intake is short, okay? This one, the intake's long. So I find the 395, it's a snappier saw that seems to have more power. Nothing wrong with a 395, but again, this is more of an emissions type top end, and it runs differently. It is a good saw. You can see the 395 has dual transfers. That's not a bad thing. Okay, transfers look really small in this because they kind of are. Okay, 394 has the old school upper transfers are really small. Okay, so that's the main differences. Exhaust side looks exactly the same. There's really not much in the way of differences. Combustion chambers are the same. So that's the main two differences. So on paper, these look the same, don't they? More or less. So the question is, can you run a 395 piston in a 394? Okay. I have a highway pop-up for 395. I don't even know what this is, friends. This is just a no-name white box 394 piston I had in my junk. This is a 395 Meteor piston, okay? And this is a 394 Meteor piston. So if we wanted to do apples to apples, I mean, realistically, we could compare these two, and that's probably what I'll do in this video. Okay, so the question is, can you run a 395 piston in a 394? On the surface, you probably would say yes, why not? It's the same bore, same stroke. Cylinders look the same. I mean, why couldn't you run those? Really the only difference is the impulse and the shape of the intake. Transfers are pretty much the same. There's a divider in this one and two transfers. So let's look at the similarities and the differences between these two pistons. Let's go apples to apples. I'm going to grab a wrist pin and show you guys how I line them up. Just give me 2 seconds here. Okay, I grabbed a Meteor wrist pin. So this is the 394 piston, okay? Wrist pin fits nice in there, nice and smooth. If you want to compare pistons, this is how I do it. Because the wrist pin height will not change, okay? Or it shouldn't change. So first thing, let's look at the deck height, or the crown of the piston. Those look bang on. Rings are in the same place, more or less. Interesting. Intake. Well, it certainly looks like the 395 has a shorter skirt on it. Okay, now what you can do is you can put it down on a flat surface like I am right now, and there's actually a small gap. Probably 20 thousandths, I would say. You have to make it flat, but maybe 10 thousandths. So it's pretty similar. So at face value, I would say, yeah, you can run a 395 piston and a 394. Let's do this 394 piston to the highway pop-up. Is there any difference? Well, first thing is the highway's got a tighter hole for the wrist pin. And again, same thing. Piston crown is exactly the same, other than that small pop-up. These pop-ups are not very big, friends. So if you're buying one of these expecting huge compression gains, you might not be happy. You will get some with one of these. But it's not going to be mind-blowing. And that's okay. Okay, I'm just going to stack one on the other and let's see. So these two look like they're pretty much identical on the intake side. One difference, the wings, okay? Notice there's no wings on this side. So there is a little bit of a difference between the highway and the Meteor. The highway, that's just going to give you a little bit more support on the piston. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not going to go into weights here because we'll be doing that in another video. I just want to cover the basics for those of you that want to rebuild one of your saws. Here's the piston that was in this saw. Well, that certainly, if we're gonna go apples to apples, that certainly looks like a 395 piston, doesn't it? That looks identical to this. Now, I have no way of knowing. This is an old logging saw. It was worn out. It came to me from a subscriber, Mr. TK. And TK said, hey man, I was working on this for a guy. It's really scored. It runs, but not well. And he doesn't want to spend the money to rebuild it. So, if, you know, I'll send it your way. So that's the info I got on this saw. Anyways, this appears to be a 395 piston. Now, how can I be 100% sure? See where the wrist pin retaining pins are? Now, that's to keep it from spinning. Okay. So you can see that. See where they're located. They're center right over the intake. Okay. Now, let's look at the 394 piston from Meteor. Wrist pin retainers are, or not wrist pin, ring retainers. There you guys go. Sometimes my brain's working different than my mouth. It happens to all of us. Okay. These are outboard in line with the windows. Okay, and let's do an apples to apples comparison. Two Meteor pistons. Again, friends, if you're going to aftermarket Meteor, I love their pistons. A lot of times I put a Meteor piston in a highway cylinder. But if you're going performance, I like highway because highway tends to have bigger windows. Okay. And they're usually lighter. But if you're just going a stock rebuild, I really like a Meteor piston. I just do. They last. They come with good caber rings. But before I put my foot in my mouth, well, friends, the highway came with caber too. So right there, you guys can see that. So I guess that's a non-issue. Okay. So again, 395, 394, and look. 394, the pins are here. 395, they're here. Okay, what I'm going to do is, in the interest of time, I'm going to put all these aside. Let's slip the 395 piston onto this bottom end and then quickly bolt down the cylinder just to see, is there going to be an issue with clearances? The reason why you definitely don't want these on the exhaust side, because if they come out, they'll get caught and you'll blow up your saw. They'll get caught on the exhaust side, especially under heat. And the other issue is that gap in the ring could catch your exhaust port, okay, and grab the plating, and then it's game over. Could happen, doesn't always. I've seen guys do some interesting experiments and put pistons. I've seen saws. I've had saws in the shop with pistons that are backwards, and no issue. Now, I don't think that's a stock piston. I don't think those are stock clips, but again, oh no, I'm going to say that's a stock piston. You guys can look at this. Those of you that know these saws, I don't think it's a Meteor or highway. Anyways, that's of no consequence to what we're doing here. Okay, wrist pin bearing, 395 piston. Okay, see if we can get this to go on without fighting us. hard to do on camera, but we'll get her done. Okay. Okay. Now, honestly, I don't even have to bolt this down. My question is, at bottom dead center, do those wrist pin or the gaps in the rings end up in the intake? Let's find out. Okay, I'm just gonna loosely put this thing together, and then we can all have a look. Now, this video might be a non-issue because, again, this saw came with what appears to be a 395 piston in it. So that might not mean anything. Let's turn this thing over. So no rings in the intake at bottom dead center. Okay. So honestly, friends, if I had a ring gap in the center there at bottom dead center, I would probably say no, I don't want to run the 395 piston in this saw. Okay. Everything seems fine. And again, because the deck heights are the same, I'm not worried about any squish issues. Now, if you were, because sometimes you have a saw that you can't get a piston for, but you find something that's similar, I'd like to dive into that this summer when we have time, just to show you guys some of the swaps that you can do. I still have that John Sered on the shelf. It's basically a 288. It's a, I can't remember the model number, friends, but it's a 920. That's what it is. I got that 920 John Sered that needs a piston that was sent to the channel, and I want to see what I can do with that saw, because I think I could probably fit a 288 piston in it. I don't know, but so again, friends, what I'm saying is I'm 99% sure that, yeah, you can run a 395 piston in a 394. Now, the answer to that is, of course you can, because, well, here it is. I don't know how long this saw ran for. It doesn't seem to have a ton of wear on it. I mean, but there's definitely some time on this piston. Notice, you can see the machine marks up here. See that? And then they're gone, which tells me this thing's been running in here for a while. So now the question is, should you? Well, if you're doing a stock rebuild or you're new at this, I'd probably get the 394 piston. They're definitely not as common, but this is a stocked item. If you go on Wolf Creek's website and you go to the Meteor section, or I believe other Husqvarna models, there's like a section with models that don't have the same parts support. You can find this. That's where I found it on the website. So these are available, and this is a quality piston. You could throw this in your saw and not worry about it. So anyhow, I hope that helps you guys out. I had a lot of questions about it. For sure, I'm going to say, yeah, you can run a 395 piston to 394. If you don't like the idea of doing that, then get the 394 piston and let it rock. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out at the bench. I hope that answered the question. I didn't even realize that was a thing. I actually assumed that they had the same piston. I've had a 394 forever, but I've never worked on it because, I don't know, friends. There's certain models of saws that manufacturers make. They just go and go and go and go and go. And by the time they don't go, there's usually nothing left of them. 394s are like that. 288s are definitely a saw. When I get a 288, it usually looks like the guy drug it behind the truck to bring it in here. So 394s are just one of those saws. They go forever. I mean, look at Buchan's 394. He bought that. I can't remember when, friends, but he told me that was a saw that he bought when he first went to logging camp, or, early on in his career. He ran it stock for years, fall and big timber, because that's the size of saw you needed back then. And then he had it ported and continually ran it up until, you know, it's still going now as far as I know. So, I mean, honestly, friends, these 394s are just absolutely bomb-proof. I love mine, and I'm hoping that I can just throw this one together. Now that I know that I can use any piston, the decision will have to be, do I want a 394 Meteor, a 394 Highway pop-up, or a 395 Highway pop-up? That's the question. We'll cover that in another video, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the right track. Part of getting a build together is figuring out what parts you need and then what are you doing with the build. Me, I want to make this thing stupid. I have no use for a ported 95cc saw. I really don't. So therefore, my build parameter on this one is just to have a stupid saw that makes me giggle every time I run it. So, it'd be nice if it's slightly reliable, but I don't even care on this one. I think we'll let the chips fall where they may. Anyhow, friends, thanks for hanging out. Hope that helps you guys out. Keep sending emails and questions. And a lot of the topics that I do on the channel are kind of based on what I'm doing, but if there's question after question, it's the same thing, I'll cover that in a video because, you know, no question is a stupid question, right? There's only stupid answers, and in my opinion anyways, and, you know, if enough of you are asking the same questions, it's probably a thing. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take it easy. See you guys in a couple days. Later.